Hello and welcome to the Drive Home Podcast, the podcast where I'm the only one who needs to buckle their seatbelt. And speaking of which, if you couldn't hear that, I just did. So, okay, let's see if I can do this real smooth, real quick before I start driving. Yep, that should be fun. So, I had a weird schedule for me. Maybe it's not so weird for other people, but I had to be at work at 8:30 this morning, which is not normal for me because I am not a morning person, like, at all. But so I got to work at 8:30 and I just got out and it's 12:30 in the afternoon. I'm gonna go home. It's kind of warm out today. I know the previous episode went on for a bit, so I hope that doesn't happen in this episode too. But I want to talk about something that I care about, and I don't think I talked about it at all yet, really. But so there's this game I play, and I've been playing for a few years now, at least. Like, it must have been about 7, because I think it was 2017, 2018 I started playing. It's a free-to-play game, pretty much available everywhere. Might not want to get it on your phone unless if you have like a really good phone, but you know. And it's called Warframe. So for those of you who do know what Warframe is, congrats. This is gonna be really dumb for you. Like, I'm gonna sound really stupid. And for those of you who haven't heard of it, you'll decide for yourself. But basically, Warframe it's a free-to-play game that I think has one of the best monetization systems out there for free-to-play games, because you don't actually need to put any money into the game whatsoever if you choose to. Like, it's not pay to win per se, because there's not really a competent PvP mode, because it's mostly PvE. So basically it's and this kind of weirded me out at the beginning too, but so the way the game works is it's mission based, which isn't my favorite kind of game usually, but Warframe speaks volumes about that in a way, to the point that, you know, I play it even though those types of games aren't usually games I play. So mission, at least from what I understand, I'm using my definition. When I say mission-based game, I mean sort of like COD story modes or whatever, where like you're in a certain area for like a mission, but instead of it being like really specific each mission, in Warframe it's like the same thing, but all the maps are procedurally generated, and there's like a handful of game modes. I think there's 20 to 30 maybe, like, different game modes to do in the game. But what really shines about this game is the movement and the characters, for lack of a better word. So you are controlling a Warframe, which is, it's basically your defense, but also your major offense, as there is normal gunplay. So there's, like most games that have stuff like this, you have a primary, and you have a secondary, and you have a melee. And further down the line, you get a big gun. But as cool as that is, the normal guns tend to be better a lot of the time. which, like, yeah, there's sort of like power creep in the game for that, but at the same time, it's not what I would call, like, because basically the way Warframe works is you can pretty much make any weapon good. You can pretty much make anything work or whatever if you have enough time, put in the hours, grind the stuff. It's very grindy, I will say that. But most of the grinding is towards the end, as long as, you know, you're not skipping a couple steps. So, also, there is like a massive, cohesive, it makes sense kind of story in Warframe. Like, there's lore and stuff, and it's really interesting. And I don't want to get into it too much, but like, it's really interesting. Like, just the whole concept is interesting, because it's essentially you are space ninja mercenary robot things in space, and you just basically go around massacring people. Well, people who try and kill you and or want you in a prison, or to take your blood as a robot blood. That's weird. Well, technically, you don't want to take your robot blood, they want to take your blood, but that's confusing. And the reasons behind it are also weird. So, that's besides the point. Like, there are... So, on this journey through our solar system, so this isn't like fantasy, so to speak, I guess. A lot of people say it's similar to, like, Destiny, and I played Destiny 2 and stuff, and I guess the way weapons are used is kind of similar. Kind of. But Warframe is just a lot... To me, it's a lot better, because, one, you don't have to, like, backtrack through things. Like, the story advances with whoever's playing it, so to speak. It's one of those games where every single player is their own protagonist of their own story. And then there's multiplayer to, like, play the game with friends and stuff. And you know, there's technically like a battle pass, but I wouldn't call it that, because it's completely free. Like, it's never costed a cent, as far as I know. It shouldn't have. I guess in theory, if you want to, you could do something specific to earn it, but basically you get like a set of challenges per week, or so you get like 3 missions in a day for a day, and there's like 7 like for the rest of the week. And you know, that's sort of, it's basically a battle pass, but it's completely free for everyone who plays the game. And they used to do really cool like story stuff with it, and they haven't in a while, and I guess they're focusing on like the main game rather than like the cool side stories right now, which is fair, because there's like a huge update that I think is supposed to be coming out at the end of this year. That's supposed to be huge. And also, like, the dev team, or just like the main people who work on the game, or like the leads who work on the game, are really forthcoming, I guess is a word, but also they engage with the community a lot. So they have dev streams, I think once a month or less. I don't know how often it is. Maybe it's like 2 per month or 3 per, I don't know, once a week maybe, I don't know. But what I do know is that they obviously love the game. It's a game where I don't think there's nearly any hate towards the dev team or anyone who's worked on the game, there might be some people who don't like work. I don't know, like it's not a game that you hear people complain about in terms of like, oh, the company behind it's bad, or like the player base is awful or something. And you know, there are like exceptions to the player base thing because every person is different, but it's kind of hard to be toxic, I guess. Besides, there's a chat feature, so you can either get on a headset or you can type into chat what you know, so you can be toxic there. And I've never really seen it occur to me personally. Like, it's never occurred to me personally, but I have seen stuff like that. But you know, that's how it is with every community. There's always those people who just go out of their way to be mean. But I think in Warframe it's definitely harder to do that, since there's no friendly fire for allies, unless if an enemy hits you with a specific element damage, which is actually kind of funny, because then, like, because to a certain point, like, everything in the game is like overpowered. There's a Warframe who can manipulate time, and she's not even one of the I would say she's not one of like the top tiers, even though there's not really like a super good tier list or anything, because like all like, so you can mod your Warframes and your weapons and basically everything. So it's hard to say that like one Warframe is stronger than another, though there are some that stand out. A couple of years ago, they actually had to nerf a Warframe because it was so overused. And it wasn't so much that the Warframe was super strong, so much that the Warframe was easy to go AFK with. Because one of its abilities spawned a AI clone of itself with more health, more overall like survivability, and it just had auto aim basically, and it would have your weapons with the mods on it equipped and stuff, so it could basically just like obliterate anything if you gave it like a really powerful like rocket launcher or something. And it didn't consume ammo from your guns, so you could give it like a weapon that was really overpowered but didn't have a lot of ammo, because that's usually how they balance certain weapons. So like there's usually radial weapons is how we call them in Warframe, so like explosive weapons or weapons that like chain enemies or have some sort of like explosion effect to them. And there was one that's called the Brahma, which is like it shoots a explosive arrow. Basically, it's a bow, and basically, like if you put enough, like if you put certain mods on it, you could make it shoot multiple arrows. And so combine multiple arrows with infinite ammo, and you can stand still and watch all the grunts die. Because a lot of the enemies you would fight at that point were just like most of the time when you fight enemies in Warframe, it's grunts. And then occasionally there are hyper units, so to speak, or hyper enemies called Eximus units. And they have a specific like strategy to each of them. It's like they're normal units, but they're buffed in some way. So they have additional form of health. At least now they do. Back then they were super weak and barely did anything. Like there were like some that did something if they hit you, but if you killed them, they wouldn't really do anything. But Warframe is honestly a game I highly recommend to anyone who has any console really. You can have it on console, on PC. You can get it on phone, though I haven't really done anything with that because it seems weird. And it's like the newest platform it's on. So I don't know. And that, and it's a big game, so you'd need a lot of space. So I would 100% recommend it. It's just like, so it's weird because at the beginning, as for a lot of people, they just don't know what to do. My best recommendation for if you choose to start Warframe is after you complete the tutorial quest or whatever, because there's a tutorial quest line that teaches you a lot of the different game modes, or at least the ones that were in the game when it launched. Once you do that, I recommend you make your way through to all the other planets. You unlock a higher difficulty to fight on if you complete every single mission on every single planet. And that's a good place to start, because doing stuff like that will unlock progression towards additional quests and stuff. And then to get additional Warframes, you don't have to like pay money or anything. You can, but it's not. That's just the fastest way, is paying real money. But and you know, maybe if it's a certain Warframe, you might do it. Like there's one specific Warframe that if I had to earn that Warframe again, because they limit the amount you can have at any one time. Well, kind of. Like, they give you a limit and you can increase it with premium currency, or occasionally there's a way to increase it without premium currency. So you could wait for that, but those only happen so often. I think it's like once per battle pass, and the battle pass in Warframe, which is called the Nightwave, which so I think I'm just gonna call it that, just to be clear, because I don't really think of it like a battle pass. But so in the Nightwave, you can, so per Nightwave, I guess there's usually 2 weapon slots, because weapons have a limit as well, and then there's usually 1 Warframe slot as well. So sometimes the game is like, the game is very like freeing. Like you can, I think one of the funniest things is that like the everyone in the community can participate in some way. So every year in July, usually, unless it, like, I think there was, like, COVID made it weird, but they still do their own con, right? So it's called TennoCon, because the race of people that you are in the game, because you're not the Warframe, you're a Tenno, and Tenno are people who can control Warframes, basically. But to make, so they do this thing every year called TennoCon, and lots of people go to TennoCon. It's held near their company building, and so that means it's in Canada, is what that means, because they're a Canadian-based company, I believe. The company is Digital Extremes, and I think they're technically underneath a bigger company that has a more, like, you would know the name, I think, but I can't remember what it is, because I just never really paid attention to that. Because they seem to do their own thing. Like, I think, just to put this in perspective, Digital Extremes as a company, as far as I know, they've only come out with 2 games, and they're working on their 3rd. And they all have a similar style. And they also, and I think they sort of connect back to each other in a way, or well, they might. So the first one is called Dark Sector. it sort of has the base. It's sort of like a story kind of game. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You're this guy, and there's this virus infecting this foreign country or something, and you get infected with it and stuff, and there's a whole thing, and it seems to be connected to Warframe, as there are skins related to that game in Warframe, and you know, it's made by the same people, so you know. But I think they said that it's not the same universe or something, though who knows, honestly. To make a long story short, Warframe is a free-to-play game that I think is very fun, and I would recommend to anyone who wants to try it out. You're basically a robot ninja in space, and each different Warframe has its own set of abilities. So the 3 starting Warframes, so you get to choose from 3 at the beginning, and the one that you pick is the one that you start with. There is Excalibur, there is Vault, and there's Mag. Mag is by far the hardest to use of the 3 from the beginning, and probably the most confusing one too, but she is stronger later on. Just at the beginning, she's not as useful. So, and then, it usually is recommended that you get Excalibur first, which I know why. He's a very good Warframe. And then Vault is for like middling, like, you know, like you're not a noob, but you know, don't want to pick Mag at the beginning. And then there's Mag. And so for Excalibur has Sword Dash. I forget what it's called, but it's some type of blinding move. It blinds the enemies around him. I believe it's called Radial Blind, but I could be wrong. His third, Radial Javelin, basically launches swords out. Like, I don't really know how it works, but he sends swords flying out, and they'll hit opponents and deal damage. And then his ultimate, so to speak, because every Warframe has 4 abilities and a passive. Passives aren't super important a lot of the time, but they can be useful. So his 4th is probably his strongest ability. He pulls out something in that we like to call an exalted weapon, which exalted weapons are weapons that are unique to specific Warframes that can only be used by said Warframes because it's part of their kit, so to speak. And so Excalibur happens to have an exalted blade, which is just a sword, right? But this sword is different because it's stronger, for one, than most other swords in the game. I don't know how specifically it scales, but I think it's based off of strength that you have. But also, it's sort of similar to like the Master Sword, where it shoots beam projectiles, except it always shoots like a wave slash sort of that goes outwards, right? Like it always shoots that sort of beam projectile, and that's probably what makes Excalibur so overpowered and good for beginning players. Is like usually it's just the fact that you can blind people combined with you can pull out a really powerful sword. And then Vault can electrocute opponents. So Vault can stun opponents. Vault has a barrier made out of like electricity that can amplify damage if you shoot something through one of his barriers. It amplifies the damage, and also, you know, it stops bullets from coming through and hitting you. So that's a good point. And then he can speed up everything, everything allied based. So the ability itself is just called speed. But what it does is it makes every action faster. So reloading your weapon, shooting your weapon, swinging your sword, or whatever. It doesn't have to be a sword. But, yeah, I was just talking about Excalibur, so. And then his fourth is a massive area-wide stun. I think it stuns for like 3 seconds, but it like chains to different enemies when you do that. And it's really strong. It doesn't necessarily kill, but it stuns them, so it makes them easier to attack. And then Mag. Mag has, her first is Pull. Also, his fourth was the area of effect discharge, which the ability is called discharge. Mag, her first ability is Pull. At least I think. I don't know if they changed the name. There was a thing where they made there was a really cool cinematic intro for Mag. Well, for all the 3 starter frames. Which is now in the game. It's like the beginning cutscene. But, what happened in it is she was able to, like, hold bullets back and then push them back, basically. And that was not something she could currently do, so they changed her kit. But her first ability is usually called Pull. And I'm not too good at using Mag, and I don't use her often enough to speak too much to it. But her other abilities include, so she can basically shield strip or armor strip, which is essentially like, so enemies have health, and then certain enemies are armored enemies, which is to say that they have armor, which reduces the damage their health takes. And then some enemies also have shield, and shield is a separate type of health. Shield is a rechargeable health, which is different. Like, it's rechargeable, but not everything has it. Most Warframes have it, but there are like 2 or 3 examples of Warframes that don't have shield. Like, everything has an armor value of some number, but it's not usually super high for certain units. It's usually balanced between units either have lots of armor or they have a decent amount of shield. And some units have both, which makes them really annoying. But so Mag can strip shield and armor from enemies, and then use it to attack them with this next ability, which is oh wait, no, so part of that is, so like, I think it's called Polarize, and so one, it restores allies' shield, and then it also does the stripping on enemies, right? And then for her next ability, and I think I'm getting the order wrong, but I know her fourth in particular, but her next ability weaponizes the armor strip, so and among other things. So her next ability is Magnetize. Now what Magnetize does is she can put it on an enemy or in an area, and what it will do is it will magnetize the center of that area, dragging in enemies and any projectiles shot into that. And any projectile shot into that will damage enemies inside. So you can imagine how this can kind of be considered really overpowered, where if you can shoot a projectile inside of her magnetic bubble, the enemies that are inside will die really quickly, as there's just a bullet flying around towards the center. And then her last ability, I believe, is called Crush, which basically she lifts enemies up and then she like crushes them, sort of like an angry Darth Vader. I believe it is a good example of that. Anyway, there are over 50 Warframes at this point in the game. And there's so many story quests, and I didn't want to spoil the story, so I didn't go into it nearly at all. But I highly recommend you try it. It's free. You don't have to put money into it. If you just play the game long enough, you can actually make premium currency in a way. So there's a trade system with other players where you can trade stuff. And the stuff you can trade, not everyone has, and not everyone wants to go get. So if you happen to have like a backlog of stuff of a certain category, you can trade it to anyone who doesn't have it, and they'll pay you for it. And they can pay you for it with just about most other things in the game. Besides common materials and stuff, I guess. You can't use those, but they could give you premium currency. They can't give you the normal currency because that's not that great in the end. So, but they can give you mods that you don't have, or mods that you do have, which I don't know why you need those ones, but you could get them. But there's a lot of stuff that you could get, honestly. So, and I don't participate in that all that much. I like supporting the company because they do really good. So I don't, and also a lot of the game is customizing how your Warframe looks, because there are lots of skins for every single Warframe. Well, not every single Warframe, but most Warframes have some skins. And then, you know, when the new ones come out, they don't always have a skin, but they have the default skins, so that's something. Anyway, something that the community does is, and I don't know how exactly it's picked, but so DE, which is short for Digital Extremes, will pick I think art or designs for stuff, and they will put it in the game, and it's called Tenogen. I don't know why it's called Tenogen, but basically, I think if you buy something that's Tenogen, you have, so for one, it's exclusively cosmetics. So Tenogen is exclusively cosmetics. I want to get that out of the way right now. Cosmetics made by the community. So people who play the game or like the game will like design skins for weapons, and then DE will put it in the game. And I believe if you buy some of that stuff, you'll get bonuses. Or well, the owner will get like some of it, which is really cool. I said I wasn't going to make this drag on, but there's so much to talk about with Warframe, and somebody suggested I talk about it, so, well, the person who knows that I do this suggested it to me, because I was talking about multiverses, and I told him I was talking about it, and he was like, you should talk about Warframe, because he plays it with me, so... Anyway, that's enough for now. I'm a little tired. I want to go inside and not melt to death in my car. So, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Drive Home Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, because my throat is currently not feeling so great. Thank you all for listening, and I hope to find you the next time I drive home. Bye.